post-traumatic stress, sexual trauma, and dissociative disorder, issues related to intimacy and sexuality, by Mark F. Schwartz, SCD, Lori D. Galperin, LCSW, William H. Masters, MD. Co-directors, Masters and Johnson, Sexual Trauma, Compulsivity, and Dissociative Disorders Program. Acquisitions, U.S. Department of Justice and National Institute of Justice. Section 1, Stress Response Cycles, Dissociation, and Sexuality. Introduction. When overwhelming stressors occur acutely or chronically, the natural biphasic response, both psychologically and physiologically, is numbing, avoidance, amnesia, and anhedonia that cycle intermittently with intrusions of affect and memory, hyperreactivity to stimuli, and traumatic re-experiencing. During the numbing phase, there will be avoidance, detachment, emotional constriction, and depression. Because of the high level of fear and avoidance, there is time-limited gradual revisiting of the event, directly or indirectly, until it is mastered or completed. Inability to work through the overwhelming experience successfully, as might occur in the case of traumatized young children without supportive nurturing parents, may result in intrusions. These intrusions may take such forms as visualizations of the event, a bleeding through of intense affect such as sadness or fear on a chronic basis, and or a tendency to recapitulate aspects of the trauma developmentally, dedicating one's life to reliving the event in disguised forms. Physiologically, the system will cycle with hyperarousal states, which the individual may experience as terrifying or exciting, as well as providing a relief from the depressed, numbing, constricted states. Hypo and hypersexuality may alternate concomitantly with these changes. When trauma has included sexual abuse or rape, the numbing and intrusion symptoms typically involve body sensations and somatic complaints, as well as sexual desire, arousal, or orgasm. In addition, if the violation is by a caregiver or by an older person towards a child, there commonly are developmental influences to the unfolding sexual and affectional systems. Traumatized individuals may develop a sexual desire disorder with hypo, hyper, or asexuality. Hyposexuality is evidenced by low initiatory behavior, while hypersexuality employs frequent sexual initiation as a means of dealing with most negative affective states, including loneliness, fear, and sadness. Asexuality typically results from extreme fear of bonding with others, extreme narcissism, which results in an inability to genuinely care for or empathize with others, and or severe repudiation of one's genitals, sexual arousal, or gender. Often, individuals with hypo, hyper, and asexualities will utilize imagery to distance themselves from others and thereby deal with fears of intimacy. Frequently, hypersexual individuals will become hyposexual as their alexithymia is reversed, and they consciously experience fears related to bonding. Mediating the link between trauma and sexuality is the phenomenon of dissociation. Dissociation is a safety-oriented cognitive mechanism in which the individual attempts to avoid memories or affect that disrupt the psychic equilibrium. With dissociation, there may be reality detachment. Events are perceived without emotions, the self becomes robot-like, and others are depersonalized objects. Since the individual feels like an object, he or she may be able to respond sexually, even to the point of orgasm, by bypassing desire or arousal. These men and women are able to have sex with the other person's body without affection, intimacy, or even liking the partner, by focusing on body parts such as breasts or genitals rather than on the whole person. In effect, they are using the other person's body to masturbate. Alternatively, they may fantasize a pornographic scene and have sex with a fantasy partner rather than the person. Thus, dissociation serves the function of distancing them, since becoming too close or dependent on others may be registered by the traumatized individual's brain as dangerous. Also, distancing oneself allows the individual to maintain the depersonalized state, and therefore not think or feel about past traumatic events. Dissociation also involves partial or complete memory loss, misperception, misappraisal, or misattribution of ongoing events. The individual may space out, or shut down, or act or look like they are feeling when they are not. The dissociation allows analgesia and protection both during the post-traumatic event and later, ensuring that the victim maintains a sense of control, even though events are in reality out of control. Sexually, the body may experience analgesia, and the hyposexual individual may report that they feel nothing. Van der Kolk has reviewed the extensive literature of endogenous opioids secreted chronically after prolonged exposure to severe stress. In veterans, he documented opioid-mediated analgesia 2 decades after the original trauma, which was equivalent to a secretion of 8 milligrams of morphine. Touching a partner following a period of early, prolonged, or extreme trauma or neglect may therefore be experientially blunted like touching an inanimate object. There also may be genital anesthesia. Erection and lubrication may be inhibited by the terror, which the individual is not consciously experiencing. Also, the individual in an over-controlled state may be unable to let go, and therefore any accumulated vasocongestion may not result in orgasm. Braun has conceptualized dissociation of behavior, affect, sensation, and knowledge or cognition as the Basque model. Examples of behavior include disorientation to place or person, or to visual, auditory, or tactile cues. Sexually, examples include men who perform anonymous sex with strangers whom they often do not like or find attractive, men who put their penises through holes without knowing who is on the other side for the purpose of oral genital contact, or women who function repeatedly as prostitutes. Typically, such dissociated behavior is trauma-bonded, i.e., the compulsive behavior serves as a reenactment of the original trauma. A part of self will revisit the experience of childhood rape repetitively to repeat the danger and excitement in an attempt to complete the stress response cycle. Dissociation of affect might include experiencing feelings of terror, numbness, or confusion without any apparent cause or effect incongruent with the present situation. Endemically, many men in this culture highly dissociate from affect, unaware of a myriad of emotions. Feeling distance and disconnection from their partners is experienced as a need for ejaculation. Some individuals can have sex without affection because of dissociated affect. On the other hand, a person might experience sexual apathy or impotence because the individual is terrified but unaware of it. Unable to use fear or terror as a signal, some individuals attempt to perform, but the genital vasocongestion is blocked by the fear. Dissociation of sensation may include numbness, headaches, or sickness, or pain in the pelvis with no medical explanation. As stated, one may touch their partner sexually and have the same experience as touching an inanimate object: numbness. The sensations of the body with sexually traumatized people are particularly prone to dissociation because these individuals may believe the body is the source of their badness, i.e., it's because of my body or my sex organs that I was raped. The latter would be an example of knowledge that has become dissociated. Other examples of dissociated sensations that are common are out-of-body experiences, such that the individual leaves their body during sex and watches from the ceiling, thus feeling numb. Dissociated knowledge might be manifested by the belief that a rape didn't happen to me, it happened to the body or to the genitals as a way of coping with the overwhelming terror. The cognitive system shuts down, and the individual then disengages each time he or she has sex and lends the body to his or her partner. This exemplifies another critical component of dissociation, which is fragmentation of personality. Whenever a traumatic situation occurs, the event is encapsulated by the dissociative process, and a semi-permeable membrane develops around the event that only allows some information in and out. For example, if a child is age 6 at the time of sexual abuse, there will be an encapsulated trauma-bonded 6-year-old self that is impervious to future development. This part of self is described by Watkins and Watkins as an ego state. Encapsulated within the ego state is cognition, affect, sensation, and knowledge of the 6-year-old. When trauma is very severe and/or occurs at a young age, The ego states are even more distinctive and become the alter personalities of the patient with a dissociative identity disorder. This ego state, or alter, may believe that it can still be raped at any moment, that danger is imminent, and that they are at fault. Typically, when there is severe early trauma, there is a robot, depersonalized part of self that has endured the rape, and an affective part of self that holds the rage and sadness unable to be expressed. Two additional parts usually manifest themselves following severe trauma. There is a part that takes care of the person which developed when no caretakers were available, and an executive part that functions to please, caretake, and go to work. This part is highly reactive to others. Because of this compartmentalization of personality, which once allowed the individual to survive, there are now parts of self that may have conflicting needs. For example, one part may want sex, but another is terrified of sex, and still another is rageful about repeatedly being treated unfairly. These parts of self may act autonomously to encourage self-destructive behavior, which the executive part of self may know will lead to harm of the self or others. Thus, when a loving, caring partner approaches the person for a relationship, another part may sabotage the budding relationship to protect the individual from anticipated abandonment or pain. Since parts of self may have limited information because of amnesic and dissociated awareness, they can interpret their needs only narrowly, relying upon the logic of the encapsulated abandoned child. When the parts of self feel sad, the executive self may get a signal to eat, or if they feel lonely, the signal may be to have sex, or if they become terrified, the executive may be urged to seek drugs or alcohol. Thus, strong emotions may trigger addictive behavior even when the consequences to the executive adult self are destructive. Emotions may trigger unresolved, unmetabolized past trauma, causing a leakage or intrusion of the cognition or affect into consciousness. The individual will feel out of control and reinitiate the illusion of control by obsessional thoughts or compulsive behavior. This illusion is the momentary, extremely reinforcing, and quite likely endorphin-releasing experience that results from revisiting the illicit danger. Thus, the obsessions and compulsions provide a relief from the pervasive pain of disconnection and chronic dysphoria. The acting out behavior and re-victimization of self is a form of physiologic masochism, which is one of the long-term effects of severe early abuse and neglect. Ultimately, resolution of past trauma and integration of the split-off parts of self are essential to stop the numbing and intrusion cycles and resultant self-destructive behavior.